Start this meeting off for Sons of the American Revolution. Welcome, sons and daughters of the American Revolution, guests and prospective members. We're glad to see you, lots of faces again. It's been quite a while since we've actually had a meeting, so bigger crowd than we expected, but hey, gotta love having a big crowd. Going to start off here. Not sure if Dr. Betzner is going to be able to talk through the phone. I don't know if he's online or not. Technology, we're trying to Zoom and do the regular stuff at the same time. Dr. Betzner, are you there? Doesn't sound like it.
Ready?
Yes. Oh, I can't hear him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know that he's zoomed in.
All right, sorry.
We were hoping. Trying to make a hybrid meeting today, so. Just start off with an invocation. Father God, we thank you for bringing us a nice day, good crowd, and good people. Thank you for bringing all of these descendants and guests of our American Revolution ancestors together. We can have a good meeting in a free country that they started. In Jesus' name, amen. Ed, would you like to start us off with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Just hold it in front of me.
Yeah, just hold it out about here.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ed. And Mr. Fish.
If you would follow me in our SAR pledge, follow with me. We, the descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution who, by their sacrifices, established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly swear ourselves to defend them against every foe.
All right. Introduction of our officers. I'm Randy Helderman, president of the George Rogers Clark chapter. And this is Ed Hitchcock. He's our registrar, genealogist, and color guard commander. And we have our vice president, John Fish, down here in the end. Let's see. Prospective members. We have Larry McCoy over here. Dad's working on his application. It's just about done, so we'll be getting him in as a member possibly at the next meeting in August. Then we have Chuck Clemens here in the front and Daryl Hensley. I know some of the other faces back here, but I don't know if any of the others are working on any applications or not. And several DAR representatives back here in the back. So thank you for being here. This time we can have our flag presentation. You guys can sit down. All right. Where's Jerry at? And you want to come up? DAR representatives want to come up as well, or?
This side, that side.
Probably spread out, probably a couple on that side.
Here's where I get the work.
That works. All right. Well, thank you, Jerry, for allowing us to have a meeting here and flying the American flag. Nice old school building here in Monroe City. My grandfather and great-grandmother both taught school here, so a little special to me. And so thank you for having a nice place and keeping up a nice facility.
Well, thank you very much. And his grandfather taught me in high school. So we've been around a good while. But, I just thank the rest of our board for what they've done, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do. We got one.
Yeah.
We're getting a videotape too.
Yeah, I got the video.
Oh, Dad, you want to get a picture?
Yeah, he's always good for pictures.
Oh yeah,
He's good for picture.
Yeah.
he did the yearbook.
I know he'll share them with us too.
You got it.
Well, he's checking now.
Oh, he's checking.
I think we're good to go.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Minutes of the last meeting, those were emailed out. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? Now, take a motion to take those minutes and approve them as they're written. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
And we have a second. Thank you very much. Treasurer's report. You know where
I don't have any.
she didn't send that with you?
Huh?
Okay.
I don't have any. She didn't have any in the packet.
I didn't see it in there.
Apparently didn't.
Okay. Well, we'll have the treasurer's report at the next meeting. Next, registrar genealogist report. Ed Hitchcock, got anything to?
I really don't much to add. We got 2 new members we're going to install today. I guess all the 2 new members, I know, is Terry Joe Lancaster here? Okay, I see him. I met you. Yeah, so I got 2, and we got some new members working on application. Larry McCoy. Let's see. I think that's all right now.
Okay.
I don't think they got any prospective members offhand.
Okay.
I don't know.
Jerry Coonrod and other gentleman back here is thinking about it, so we'll have to start working on their paperwork. So possibly at the next meeting we'll be working on that then. All right. Upcoming events. Let's see. Next weekend, May the 15th, we have the DAR State Congress. The Indiana Color Guard will have a sword arch in the aisle up at Indianapolis. A few of us will be up there for that, which is why we had changed the meeting date from next weekend to this weekend. May the 22nd, be a parade at Harrodsburg. And we got the George Rogers Clark Memorial. The wreath laying ceremony was canceled, but we're going to have a tent at the rendezvous. So we'll have that and talk about the SAR and DAR to people if they want to join. So we'll be able to add them in and get some new names. I know we've had several prospective members that came out of that, so it's always good. A lot of people liking history at that event. June the 13th, we'll have a Patriot grave marking for Jethro New and John Story. I'll be in Vernon Cemetery, North Vernon, Indiana. And the next event, well, there's actually two of them on the same day. June the 26th, we'll have the Bedford Limestone Festival Parade and Lagodi Summerfest Parade. So we'll have to find some extra people that can do Lagodi Parade. A lot of the members in our color guard live up towards Bloomington, so they'll want to go to Bedford. So if anybody's got a uniform and like to join in the Lagodi Parade, we'd love to have you. July 3rd, Catfish Festival Parade in Shoals. July the 10th, we'll have a memorial service for compatriot D. Doan. He's in the Daniel Guthrie chapter. Looks like it's going to be at Trinity Springs, be the service. And July the 10th to the 15th, be the National SAR Congress. That'll be out in Washington State, in Renton. And July the 24th, Fort Lawrence Battle Commemoration. That'll be in Bolivar, Ohio. A lot of events coming up this year. July the 31st, Indiana House of Delegates Summer Meeting. Let's see, it's going to be hosted by the William Henry Harrison chapter in Lafayette. The place is going to be named later. And August the 21st, Battle of Blue Licks commemoration in Carlisle, Kentucky. That's a national event. Let's see, September 23rd to 25th will be National Fall Leadership Conference. It's at the Brown Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. September 25th, the Persimmon Festival in Mitchell. And October 2nd, our chapter is going to be hosting the Indiana House of Delegates Fall Meeting. And we're going to have that at the St. Francis Xavier Parish Center in Vincennes. So, be nice having a local, driven all over the state for these. So, all right, that's all we've got on there. Don't have any reading of communications. Old business, induction of 21, 22 officers. Mr. Fish wasn't available for our last meeting, so get him installed. So,
Do that now?
might as well do that now. Ed?
Right one. We ought to do it right here.
Yeah, might as well do it right here.
Don't forget I moved that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. Okay. I take great pleasure in presenting to you the newly elected officers of the George Rogers Clark Chapter Society. Gentlemen, a gentleman, I guess you call you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Have been duly elected to the office in the George Rogers Clark Chapter Society, Indiana Society, Sons of the American Revolution. Do you promise and swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution and bylaws of the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution? And do you further promise and swear that you will faithfully discharge the duties of your office to the best of your knowledge and ability, and that you will at all times conduct yourself in a manner worthy of our society, so help you God? You respond, I do.
I do.
Okay. President-elect Randy Hildebrand, it's my privilege to present you with this gavel. Thank you. As a symbol of authority now vested in you, wield it always and with dignity and honor. Compatriots of the George Rogers Clark Chapter, Indiana Society, Sons of the American Revolution, I have officially installed this new officer duly elected by you. May I now remind you of your obligation to them, assist, support, encourage them in their discharge of their duties, thus furthering the principles and purposes of the Sons of the American Revolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That it? I moved your chair. I want you to fall down.
Yeah, that's it. You don't know, you got the stuff to install our new members, do you?
Yeah,
You have to read that?
yeah.
Good. I wasn't sure where it was at.
Huh?
I wasn't sure where it was at.
There it is.
Thank you.
I want you to fall down.
Yeah.
It'd be embarrassing besides hurting.
Okay. Next, we have a report on the House Delegates meeting that we held April the 17th. That was up at Carmel, Indiana. It was nice having a meeting, actually. Been quite a while. The papers. All right, we had a new president elected and vice president. My paper's laying around here somewhere. There it is. Jeff Jones is now our state president, and Jacob Vink is our vice president, and he's going to be our color guard central commander. And we have Ed Hitchcock and Mark Krebs that are southern and northern color guard commanders. So some bylaw changes that we come up with at the meeting. We got them introduced. They'll be fully installed at the next meeting, so we can actually have hybrid meetings or virtual meetings. We couldn't have any meetings last year officially because we didn't have in our bylaws that we could do voting and such virtually. So those have been proposed, and we'll vote on those next summer. Let's see. The Boys State, bunch of kids that are in 10th or 11th grade, that was canceled again this year. So hopefully next year we'll have it. That's where kids in that age group can go and learn about bills and such moving through Congress. Let's see. We got anything else on here? And we had some youth award presentations and Boy Scouts. Didn't have a whole lot of people trying to get in having those. So next year, hopefully, our chapter can support some people and sponsor them, some school kids, and get our chapter up there to have some people eligible for those. Let's see. And awards. Okay, our chapter received a Partners in Patriotism Award for color guard events and grave markings, so it's always good for our chapter. And then I received a Meritorious Service Award medal, so that was nice. Thank you. Yeah, that's the majority of what we had up there. Let's see. New business. Discuss plans for hosting the October 2nd House Delegates meeting. One of the members proposed that we have grave markings at the Upper Indiana Cemetery. There's several different Revolutionary War patriots buried there, so that'd be a nice little event. And if you have something like that, it always draws in people from around the state. So, anybody got any questions on that, or no? Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm interested in how you guys do it. Are you actually getting like a bronze marker for the grave?
We usually get granite. We've had a few times where the bronze ones, people try and pry them off the grave or out of the ground if we concrete them in and steal them. So we've got a guy who's working on getting the granite ones, and we'll cement those in, and they can be mowed across. So yeah, the price has gone up quite a bit. A few years ago when we got them, they were $40. Now it's up towards $100. So he's shopping around trying to find a better price. So that we can go and mark all those at one time, and then for grave marking medals, you can get 5 of those in at one time. So,
Randy, I've not really measured them, but I think they're like about a foot square.
that's about right.
Like that. They set ground level in a memorial fashion, and they're set in, I'm sure, concrete or so. But it's a real nice little plaque, and it's got the SAR and all that on there.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Next will be installation of the new members. First we got Patriot Chuck Clemens. Yeah. All right. Patriot Chuck Clemens, you as a descendant of one of the patriots and heroes of the American Revolution, reaffirm your ancestors' faith in the principles of liberty and constitutional republic? I do.
I do.
And will you pledge to support the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution?
I do.
I now take great pleasure in presenting your membership certificate. Everything's in here. Patriot Chuck Clemens sponsored, or who sponsored you? Ed?
Ed Hitchcock.
Ed Hitchcock sponsored you into our society. We'd like to ask that he come forward and place an SAR rosette on your lapel or coat.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, good.
This rosette is the official recognition emblem of the Sons of the American Revolution. Its blue and buff colors represent the colors in the uniform worn by General George Washington. Wear it proudly. Patriot Chuck Clemens, we welcome you to the George Rogers Clark chapter. We ask that you work with us to fulfill the purposes and objectives of the Sons of the American Revolution. At this time, we'd like to invite you to address the members and present whatever thoughts you may have.
Well, thank you.
Remember that the SAR is a non-political organization. Chapters and state societies must never endorse or recommend any candidate for public office, nor may meetings include the discussion of merits or demerits of such candidates. The merit of any political public question involving the social, economic, moral, or physical welfare of the people may be fairly and intellectually studied and discussed at a meeting for the enlightenment of those attending. SAR may take a position on a bill or measure that would be submitted to a vote of the elected representatives of the people or to the vote of the people. Will all members please come forward to welcome our new compatriot of the George Rogers Clark chapter. And we can do yours first and then everybody can do it. How about that?
Okay, so just go sit down.
Yeah, we'll get our next member here. All right. Next, we'll introduce Terry Joe Lancaster. Patriot Thomas Weekly sponsored Ernie Davis.
Did you get his application? Did you get his certificate?
We did not get it in the mail
Okay.
yet.
Well, we can go ahead and install him.
Oh, well, okay.
That's okay.
We'll get that part done.
Get that much done.
Make you at least official.
If it doesn't show up, Haley, I'll track him down.
They said they haven't got it.
All right. Patriot Terry Joe Lancaster. You, as a descendant of one of the patriots and heroes of the American Revolution, reaffirm your ancestors' faith in the principles of liberty and the constitutional republic.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And will you pledge to support the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution?
I do.
I now take great pleasure in presenting your membership certificate. It's in the mail. I love the U.S. mail. Patriot, Ed, you sponsor him as well?
Or a jacket.
I'll put it on your collar.
Okay.
All right. Patriot, we welcome you to George Rogers Clark chapter, and we ask that you work with us to fulfill the purposes and objectives of the Sons of the American Revolution. At this time, we'd like to invite you to address the members and present any thoughts you have.
Well, I'm thankful to my wife, Haley, for doing so much research to the genealogical research. And I, with the exception of John Fish, I don't really know many of you, so I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody and to being as involved as I can. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. If everybody'd like to, if everybody'd like to talk to our new members or congratulate them, please do so.
I might add one thing. I don't know, hope I'm not speaking out of line, but being a new member and part of your dues that you've paid, you'll be receiving a quarterly magazine from the SAR. When your membership is acknowledged, your name will be listed with your national number will also be in there, so you'll be wanting to watch the SAR magazine
It'll be back in the back. It'll be organized by state, so work down through there, find Indiana, and your name should be there along with your national number. And I don't know if the state number's there or not, but it will be the national number. And you'll want to hang on to that because that's really important.
Yeah. Be here in the back, so sooner or later it'll show up in here when you get to your magazine. All right. Yep. Thank you. Let's see. Now we have somewhere. All right, Daryl Hensley. All right, now there's no official introduction or anything since you're already a member, but we've got your supplemental paperwork in. And you get your first gold star.
Thank you.
So.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
For those of you that are not really for sure what the supplemental refers to, for the DAR, it's the same thing, but the SAR, you can get supplemental patriots added to your list of patriots.
Yeah.
And so we try to get as many supplements added onto as we can. It reinforces our dedication and our ancestral participation in the Revolutionary War efforts, whether it be on the battlefield or in support of the troops by way of goods or services and things like that. So it's really not any different than the DAR. They do the same thing. And it's a great opportunity to get additional people added to your original application.
Could I just add something to that? The particular patriot that I'm related to is Lewis Green. Lewis Green served 7 years on the frontier with the Revolutionary War. And one of his partners was Daniel Boone. In the DAR and the SAR, there were only a few of his children that were listed due to other means. I was able to find a deed in which his granddaughter, whose father was the son of Lewis Green, granddaughter had listed all of the children, and only a couple of them had been listed from other documents, but I used a couple deed documents that I found at the courthouse that had been sitting there since 1855, and I'd heard people saying they couldn't find the verification. If you look hard enough, you can most likely find it through deeds and court records and things like that. It's a lot of hard work, but I want to encourage you, if you're having a difficult time making a leak, try some of the court records. They're online and available. Some of the deed records are online and available. So if you need any help, I'll be more than happy to assist you in any way I can to make that connection. But once I submitted the 2 documents, Ed helped me submit them into the national office, and then because of COVID and the delay, it took a while. But once they got the file, and thanks to Ed's help, they were able to look at it, review it, and say, yeah, you've made the link. So, feel encouraged that those things could happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got 2 supplemental applications in, and you've got, what, 4 of them? Is that right?
I got 5. I got another one on the way.
Now he's up to 5 of them that are...
14.
He's going to have lots of stars to wear. So there's always a little more work a person can go out and try and find some more patriots in your family tree, and yeah, you never know where you're going to find them. Turn over the right rock, and there it is.
I didn't do it for me. I did it for the generations behind me to make it easier for,
Yeah.
I mean, there's thousands of people, descendants of Elizabeth Green, who was the granddaughter of Lewis Green, thousands of dependents. It just opens the door for all of them to join either the DAR or the SAR. So that's the gift you could give to your future great-great-great-grandchildren and stuff, is the ability to make that path easier for them to find.
And that's also why the SAR national number is so important to you. It's the same as the DAR national numbers. It allows the person doing their research to find that number, and all the work then has been done before them. It's also been approved because they have the SAR number, or it's in the DAR, they have a DAR number. It just helps tremendously in the research of ancestors.
Yes, it does. Yeah, when the SAR and the DAR started in late 1800s, it wasn't that far after the Revolution, so it wasn't too hard to find records. As hard as it is now, you can imagine another 100 years, someone having to start from their patriot and working all the way up. So anything that we do now is going to help somebody in our family to be able to go back to us and then move forward with their application. So yeah, it's always a good help for them. All right. We've already talked about the awards. Next, we're ready for our program. Larry, you're up.
Okay. I'd like to thank Randy and the organization for the invitation to make you folks' afternoon a little bit more boring or better. Let's hope better. Always kick the program off. I know nobody come prepared, but it is test day. So, July 4th, 1776. What happened that day? Anybody? Come on.
They published the Declaration.
There you go. Next one, June 14th, 1775.
That is Patriot Day.
Beg pardon?
Is it Patriot Day?
I'm not sure, ma'am, just exactly what we're calling Patriot Day. June 14th, 1775, Congress authorized the raising of 10 companies of riflemen from the frontier of Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland. That is the official birth date of the United States Army. So now our little, the Congress, they've established it. Hey, we've got an army. What do we arm them with? They're riflemen. We have no official weapon to arm them with. Well, these guys that volunteered, they were frontier folks. They already had the rifles. They were already very skilled in how to use them. They were very skilled in Indian warfare. So they raised the 10 companies of riflemen, and they went to, they marched on, mostly on foot, but from Pennsylvania, wherever they might have come from, Virginia, and Maryland, to the siege of Boston. Well, New England people had never saw, they didn't know what a rifle was. They were familiar with muskets only. Well, on the way there, then, the riflemen, they'd pass through the villages, they'd give a little demonstration of their marksmanship ability. One company had 2 brothers in it. One brother stuck a board between his knees, held it, put a black circle on it. The other brother would stand at 60 yards offhand. Means offhand shooting is standing up, shooting from your shoulder, standing up. He'd shoot at that target offhand. Now you've got to have a lot of trust and brotherly love to do that. But that was one way they would demonstrate their abilities with the rifle. There were some things done during the Revolutionary War with the rifle. We are taught the shot heard around the world was fired on Lexington Green. Well, maybe it was. We know that.
But there was another shot fired, the Battle of Saratoga. And the French were sitting back. They wanted to get, the French and the English, they were terrific enemies. But the French were sitting back. They wanted to get in a war, but they wanted to be sure they got in on the winning side. With the Battle of Saratoga, we had a rifleman, Timothy Murphy. And they assigned Timothy the job of British General Fraser, I believe. They assigned him the job that you've got to kill or injure that man. The range was 250 yards. Murphy took a couple shots at him. One cut part of the rein of his horse in two. Another one came close. The third shot, sorry to say, but the third shot hit General Fraser right in the stomach. Well, that morning he knew that it was going to be a long day. He wouldn't be eating all day, but he ate a huge breakfast. Well, there that stomach was full, and that bullet hit, just literally exploded his insides. So General Fraser, but he lived through the night and passed away the next day. But threw the British into such a disarray in the battle, they didn't have any competent officer to put in that place. The result was that we won the Battle of Saratoga. Actually, it was the first major battle of the Revolutionary War that we won. But we did win it. The British surrendered around 8,000 prisoners. And the French, they took note of this. Hey, this bunch of rabble-rousing colonies, they got some potential. We think we're going to enter the war on their side. So that one shot brought our number one ally into the war on our side. They rifle from the extended ranges there, anywhere from 100 yards to 250 yards. The musket of the day, it was only accurate out to somewhere around 100 yards, depending on the man using it. 50 yards would be a better range, and we've all saw in the movies depicted there that the two advancing lines, they will advance and they'll exchange volleys, and the battle would be finished with a bayonet. Well, riflemen, they weren't very good at that kind of warfare. They were very dangerous if you put them over in a clump of trees or in a ravine where they could hide, because their weapon was slow to load. It took a good minute to load the weapon, and there was other things going on in that minute. So you can see there, the musket, it could be loaded 3 to 4 times a minute. But it had its advantages and its disadvantages. The riflemen, they were used quite often as skirmishers, and it was a case where they'd take a group of riflemen, maybe 8 or 10 men, maybe what we today call a squad, but the forces, they might be drawn up half a mile apart, maybe a mile apart, and they'd send little groups of riflemen forward. They would get within their range, and they would start basically sniping at the opposing forces. Well, it's kind of a deal there where I send my best guy out, my best slapper out. He goes out and he slaps you 2 or 3 times, and then he wants to run off. You're going to follow him. And what it would be pulling people into the battle. And that's how a lot of the battles, they open with riflemen and skirmishers. And the rifleman was a very dangerous person as long as they could keep their distance. And up close, they didn't like the looks of the bayonet. They weren't very effective troops. But used properly, which so many of the military officers at the time, today we'd have changes that would take place maybe almost instantly. Then, due to communications and customs and so on, any change that took place, it might take years. But the deal was is they didn't know, they were too hard-headed and didn't know how to use a rifleman real effectively. Although when the riflemen, whenever they come to the point of we're going to shine in this battle, they shine very, very brightly, very brightly. But the Battle of Saratoga was one of them. Another thing they'd use a rifleman for was scouts, to go out and scout the opposing army, see where their troops is concentrated. The folks in New England had never saw this. Whenever the riflemen, they send them out to scout. When they would come back, it wasn't unknown for them to be packing scalps. And people in New England there, like I say, they had never saw that kind of warfare. But that's what, it is what it is, folks. The thing about history, we'll talk and you study it. There's things in history that we like. There's things we don't like. But one thing for sure, we can't change one bit of it, good or bad. It's our past. Yeah. And there's a hobby today in my circle. It's called living history. Well, Vincent's Rendezvous would be a good example of that, but the people that come there and participate, they try to relive the history that weekend as best they can. It'd be a camp. It could be demonstrators there demonstrating broom making, basket making, weaving. The list goes on and on. The route that I took in that hobby is an armorer. Now, an armorer was not necessarily a gun builder, but an armorer could repair them. All the frontier forts, establishments, be it civilian trade with the Indians or military, they had an armor there to keep weapons in working order. That's the part of the hobby that I pursued. Laid out here, we've got some tools of the trade. Of course, files was greatly used, to do any repair work. This is just a little hand vise. But if he's working on the innards of this rifle lock, which is not very big, to keep from dropping it, I've got a piece vised up here now. And suppose you wanted to file on it, you could do that without filing on the end of that thumb. That's called a hand vise. These are screwdrivers of the period. Most likely, that would be an import tool from England prior to the war. But that's the style that was going on at the time. These are two fixtures that would go with a rifle. They would screw into the end of the ramrod. You put a wad of, I'm getting ahead of myself. This one here, if the weapon wouldn't go off, you'd have to pull that load. This would screw into the lead ball and pull it. This one is for cleaning, and you screw that on the ramrod, put a hunk of tow on it, and that would be your cleaning. And of course, wet it with water. That would be your cleaning agent. That's how you would clean it. This is a lead ladle. This was big enough, it would have been used by groups of men. Maybe on the march where they had supply wagon, they'd have a ladle like this. But you could take 6 or 8 musket balls and put in it, melt the lead. You could report into this mold, and the result would be a much smaller ball, a rifle ball for this rifle. Kind of recycling out of necessity. We got the weapons were called flintlock because this mechanism on the side, that is the lock. This is what goes in it, the flint. When you drop the hammer, there's a Eli, grab this weapon here and hold it up like that. This mechanism here is called the lock. The device that goes in is a flint, hence the name flintlock. This pan, the pan you would fill with powder, you would close the frizzes, you'd full cock it, and then when the trigger's pulled, you see the sparks. The sparks fall in the pan, ignites the powder, goes through the touch hole, the main charge goes off. But these are flints, and they would come in different sizes. This one would be for this rifle, so on and so forth there. 2 rifle balls. It's a round lead ball. Of course, the weapon used black powder is three ingredients: charcoal, potassium nitrate, and can't recollect the third one, guys. But anyhow, it was made. A lot of it was imported, but it was made plumb out to the frontiers of the country. Sulfur is the third ingredient. Potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal. That's the only three ingredients. Of course, they had a little formula, or what we call a recipe, for making it. So much charcoal, so much potassium nitrate, so much sulfur. And that was the powder for it. We imported a lot, but we manufactured also on our own. Lead mines was a pretty strongly protected resource that we did have in a few places in the country and some places out of the country. And when I say that, I'm talking out in Missouri, which at the time was Spanish territory, but they had lead mines out there. In West Virginia, we had today we call them the Chiswell lead mines, but lead was mined here in the colony, so we were somewhat self-sufficient. Not self-sufficient, but pointed in that direction. Of course, in every a workman can't be a workman without a hammer. So that's a hammer. I painted the handles red so that if I was demonstrating outside and I dropped that, I could look down in the grass, readily see it. And at any point, guys, if you have questions there, at the end of the thing, we'll have question and answer time. Got a little story or two here to tell that somewhat fits in with all this stuff. Who knows? What is that? Come on. Knife. This one here. That's an awl for punching holes in leather so as you can get a needle through it. You can't just run a needle through leather there because it doesn't work. It does work, but it's not very easy. So it's best to punch a hole. Then this is bullet mold. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I can make every one of you feel better. Now, how are we going to do this? All right, got a story to tell. The year 1769, group of long hunters. They were out to them, the promised land, which was Kentucky. And they were way over in the western part of Kentucky. Well, their supplies was getting pretty well extended, so they had the choice of going back to Virginia or continuing west to Kaskaskia, which is over on the Mississippi River, for resupply. Well, most of the group went to Kaskaskia. Two of the group, James Smith and most likely a slave called Jamie, was with him. Well, James stepped on Kentucky is the land of tall cane, Kentucky, land of tall cane. James stepped on a piece of broken cane, broke it off in his foot, and kind of ignored the injury because there's really not much they could do about it. So a few days that foot was horribly festered up. So they withdrew to a protected spot. They managed to kill a buffalo. They dried the meat for jerky for some supplies because one is you didn't want to have a fire going 24 hours a day, and two, you didn't want to be shooting that rifle every day because they were in hostile area. Well, they got them a supply of jerky made. Then they took the knife, laid the injury open. Ow, you starting to hurt? I am. Laid the injury open, took the awl, probed around till they found the piece of cane. At that point, they took the bullet mold as forceps, got a hold of the piece of cane, and pulled it out. He said, I'm starting to feel awful sick, guys. I'm hurting. Sent Jamie off into the woods, gather the roots of the lind tree, bring them back, we'll boil them, we'll make a poultice, put that on that injury. Which they did that, and he had Jamie to collect moss while he was on the excursion of hunting thing. Collect some moss and peel some green bark off an elm tree. Well, they treated the injury, they boiled the poultice, put it on the injury, took the moss as a bandage and the elm bark as a tie-on, and a couple weeks he was healed up, ready to go. Now, I told you I could make you feel better. Can you imagine the pain and misery, folks, that went with that? Now, that's well recorded in history. And another account, one of them had a bad tooth. Oh. So they took the knife, laid the gum open to where they could get a hold of the tooth with the bullet mold, got a hold of it, out it came. I don't know how much dealings you've ever had with a dentist, but that don't sound like a very good scenario either. But a few days, he was healed up, ready to eat jerky again. And them stories, folks, is out of Frontier Journals there. Very challenging time to live. Very challenging time to live. And we kind of strayed off from the rifle. This rifle that Eli held up is a pretty fancy rifle. Today it's worth, I don't know, maybe $3,000. In the day, it would have been a fancier gun that when they were raising these rifle companies, as this is an example, the captain, they picked their captain, but usually the captain was a man of at least middle class means. He was their leader. He was low class enough to duke it out in a bar if he had to, but he was high class enough. He could read, he could write, he could do all that. He was a natural born leader. He would be armed probably with a weapon like this because he was established in life, and possibly, I hate to mention this, folks, possibly he owned some slaves, which was a mark of wealth at the time. This rifle here, I borrowed from Randy, is one I built. It would be a middle tier gun that the upper average person would own. Then there was a lower class, and we don't even have an example of that here. That would have been something most likely that an armor at these ports there, as broken weapons would come in, and they is broke or damaged too bad to repair. We got a pile of junk parts over here. Well, eventually there, I'd grab a part from here and a part from there. I'd work on this gun, and this is the end result, is a rifle. Or maybe the stock would be broken, and couldn't use it for nothing but firewood. I'd take the hardware off of it. I'd cut out a new stock, and I'd restock that weapon. An armor there, he wasn't a fancy person, very mechanically inclined, but chances are he could not build you a fancy rifle if that's what you wanted. You'd have to go to an established settlement somewhere for that. So that's the different classes, varieties of weapons that would be involved. And like I say, we organized there, we declared we need 10 companies of riflemen. We don't have a weapon, so the riflemen brought their weapons from home. Now we've got 800 to 900 riflemen. Not a weapon in the bunch is exactly alike. Yours might have come from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. His might have come from some maker in Virginia frontier. Therefore, your maker had his ideas, and your maker had his ideas. We had certain bounds that we had to stay within, but yet the decoration would be a little different. They call them schools. They were named after the counties. There's the Lancaster School, named after Lancaster County, Lehigh, Lebanon, Bethlehem. It goes on and on. Then the southern folks down there, they had their own customs and what they thought it ought to look like. Well, as a settlement of the country, the Pennsylvania makers, they started graduating down what we call the Great Wagon Road, down out of Pennsylvania through western Maryland and the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. Okay, they're moving in the southeast direction. Coming out of Tidewater, Virginia, we've got settlers there, mostly of English extraction. they're following the rivers, the flow of the rivers. Well, the flow of the rivers always leads you to the mountains. These folks are coming down the mountain path. These folks are following the river. So then we've got two cultures coming together. The folks out of Pennsylvania were Scotch-Irish and Germans. The folks out of Tidewater, Virginia were mostly English. They brought their customs and so on with them. There's an old joke. I don't know if I can tell it right or not, but when the Germans came and settled, they built a nice barn. If you've ever been over in Pennsylvania, these 300-year-old barns are still standing. There's truth to that. When the English came, they built a nice church. There's truth to that. When the Scotch-Irish came, they built a still. Now, that's somewhat of a joke, but yet it's not totally a joke. Yeah. Like I say, when you study history, folks, it's a fascinating thing, but some things are just not like we thought, and some of it we'd like to forget, but we can't. It's our history. Back to what the rifle would do, it was used heavily there to battle Saratoga. Major Ferguson was a leader, a British leader down in the Carolina area. Well, he let the word out to the rebellious colonists, I'm going to march into your country, lay your land to waste, burn your houses, kill your livestock, bold threat. Little did he know that the frontiersmen of the country, they had found out about this. And west of the mountains, Ferguson hadn't penetrated the mountain. West of the mountains, they were raising a pretty good army. And it was mostly riflemen. And I believe William Campbell was the leader, the general in charge of it. But he led his men down into the Carolina country, and they met at Kings Mountain. And Kings Mountain was a huge victory for the Patriots. But the Patriots were armed mostly with rifles. Now, the rifle had done some fantastic things, and it was a hunter's weapon. But like I say, primarily it was a hunter's weapon there that, you saw a deer out in this field over here. You couldn't stand there all afternoon shooting at it. It's that first shot that counts. And these guys were very adept at using the rifle, making that one shot count. Does anybody, before we continue, does anybody have any questions?
Larry, I've got one question. We know the rifle is called a rifle because it's got rifling in the barrel.
Right.
We know what the smooth bore is, but they both, at that point in time, fired a round ball.
Correct.
Now, we know when we move up to Civil War, when Manet developed the mini balls,
right,
the conical shaped shot. My question is how did the rifling cause the little round ball to go straighter than what the smooth barrel?
Okay, I should have mentioned that, John. Thank you. The smooth bore musket, or a civilian smooth bore, was not called a musket. It was a fowling piece. But you could load it, any of the smooth bores, you could load with multiple lead ball, you could load with one round ball, or smaller shot, a fowling. We're going after the duck. That's where the name comes from. And the ball, when it comes out of the smooth bore barrel, the military style, the ball was undersized for quick loading. But there was nothing really to make that ball follow the bore of that gun, because when the ball was fired, it was kind of doing this, tumbling around on the way out. Whatever direction it was going when it left the muzzle, that's the direction that it went. It could be true or it could be off. The rifle, we think, so much of this history is a little bit sketchy in this area, but we think the Swiss German gunsmiths, when they migrated to this country, now Switzerland does not have a language of its own. The Swiss, they speak French, Italian, or German. German is the predominant language. But we think there, so it's hard to determine, was he Swiss or was he German? But they developed the method of grooving the inside of the barrel. And they'd put 7 was the normal amount. They would cut 7 grooves inside the barrel, and it done that. Okay, to make that undersized ball fit that bore, we used a cloth patch. Linen was a preferred cloth patch. Thin leather could be used. I've tried it, experimented. The thin leather for me did not work as well as good tough linen. But by tightening that ball up, when it's fired in, that ball follows the pitch of the rifling. Now we've all saw, or maybe been involved, but you'd pass the football. A bad pass, you can see that ball tumbling. We've seen that perfect pass. That perfect pass will always go a little farther, and it'll go truer to wherever it's going. The round ball was the same way. That's what gave the rifle its extended range and its extended accuracy. Now, like I say, the undersized ball at the musket shot, that's for speed and loading, because it was all put up in a paper cartridge. To be a musketman, you had to have at least 2 teeth. You'd take your teeth, put the paper cartridge in your mouth, you'd bite the tail off of it. Well, clamp it and tear the tail off. You dump the powder down the musket, and then you'd probably drop the paper and the musket ball all in one sweep with the ramrod. That's how a musket was loaded. A rifle, you'd put the powder down it, then you'd have to have the cloth patch and the lead ball. You'd have to get all that started. Then you'd take the ramrod and seat it. At that point, with the rifle, you was ready to prime the pan. And when the pan was primed, you're loaded. Go through the motion there of half cocking it, closing the pan, and full cocking it and firing the weapon. A lot of times, there's some pretty good people at demonstrating this, and a lot of times it takes longer to talk about it and explain it than it does to actually do it. We got any questions? No questions? Well, if you lived on the eastern seaboard, we got a pretty fine old mechanism here, but we got to oil it every once in a while. We're on the eastern seaboard, so the preferred lubricant was whale oil. But when you got away from the seaboard, whale oil wasn't so readily available, or probably non-available. So we used bear oil or coon oil. That was the favorite of the frontier people. And it's pretty good preservative. Some of the sayings that maybe we use today and don't quite know how we're using them, but I was born a mile from here, folks, and went to this school behind me. Well, when I started the school, I had a couple old maid school teachers. They're a little rough. They might grab you by the ear and they say, stand up here, as straight as a ramrod. Well, straight as a ramrod, that's how I want you to stand. This wooden stick in the weapon, that is the ramrod, preferably straight. The wife, she comes home from the store and tells the husband, I bought him out, lock, stock, and barrel. This is the lock, this is the stock, this is the barrel. That's referring to the long rifle, but that was a builder that could build it all. Not used very much anymore. We might be talking about our favorite soapbox actor. He'll never make it. He's just a flash in the pan. A flash in the pan is when this pan flashes, the weapon doesn't go off. The maiden with the flaxen hair, this is tow. Comes from the flax plant. Now, The frontier folks there, it's a what I call a weed crop, like wheat or rye. But the frontier folks, they would always, that was one of the first crops they'd put out was flax. They take that, they got a process they go through, which I don't hardly understand, can't describe, but the end result is they break the fibers of that plant down. They get the fibers, they comb them out, get the trash out of it, which would be the little round stalk, get that out of it. They comb this out, and they make it into thread. They would weave the thread into cloth, and they'd make you a shirt. It's linen. That's where linen comes from. Like I say, there's a saying, the maiden with the flaxen hair. We used talking about that little girl having hair that color. That's where some of our sayings come from. Offhand, I can't think of any more, but there's don't go off half-cocked. That's half-cocked. Trigger won't fall. The old man, I don't know what was the matter with him this morning. He went off half-cocked. Something's wrong. You know, he was upset about something. So that's a little history, folks, on some of the people that used a weapon like this, where they come from. It was a frontier weapon. It was a hunter's weapon. They traditionally, the riflemen there, this was back in the age when you look up to your leader, George Washington, 6'3" or 4". Yeah, I'd have to look up to George. Well, the average person back then was maybe only like 5'6" tall. For some reason, we do not know why, but the riflemen there, and they didn't have a very good diet, but they just diet and hard work. But many of them were over 6 feet tall, and that was unusual for the time. They was accounts of their durability. Maybe two of the party would be mounted on horseback, and wherever they were going, I'm talking under the conditions of for military. They're going on a scout. A couple of them would be mounted, and as they were going along, maybe a couple more would fall in with them that were not mounted. The two that weren't mounted, they would grab the horse's tail, and they would jog along at their pace for miles. Well, that takes a lot of endurance, folks, to do that. They were hardy people, and so much of the time in history, we talk about what the men done. Most of the time, for every man, there was a good woman somewhere, and a lot of what the man had to know, and much more too. But for instance, the weapon. Most of the frontier women there, they knew how to use the weapon and would if they had to. There was one account of one lady there. She earned the title of Mad Ann Bailey. Mad Ann, I believe, was a Virginia lady, and Indians there, they killed her, murdered her husband. She vowed from that day on she would kill every Indian that she could get within her sights. And she pretty well, guys, lived up to the reputation. They don't know how many. She was a frontier fighter. So the women done some outstanding things that is recorded in history, but yet it's not taught very much. Interesting era to study. I'm getting ready to go into this organization here, and Randy, I believe Randy went in through the line of Robert McCoy. Well, Robert, the difference between Robert at 17 years of age and the 17-year-olds today, I can give one example there. According to his pension application, he was a bearer of express, message runner, and he went from around Dole Hill, Virginia, to the headwaters of the Monongahela River, which is up around Fairmont, West Virginia. And as the crow flies, I think we're talking like 150 miles. But he was a bearer of express on the frontier. That was Indian country. 17-year-old, he's mature enough. You give him your most valuable message and say, go that way 150 mile and deliver this to the commandant at Fairmont. And like say our 17-year-olds today, I don't know if we'd want to trust them with anything that important or not. Now the kids today, they get kind of a bad rap though. There's a lot of good, hard-working kids around, highly intelligent. I got a lot of respect for them. The future of the nation, it depends. We're depending on them kids. I wouldn't say that a lot of the turmoil in the country right now, it ain't kids causing it. It's younger adults, and it's got its problems. But that's just the difference. And 250 years ago, we'd say, Robert, take this message 150 miles and deliver it. As far as I know, that he made that journey by himself. And we do know that he returned from that. It took about 2 weeks. I was listed as active duty 2 weeks. Later there, he says he marched on foot down to Guilford Courthouse. He was listed as a rifleman at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. Like I say, very interesting era. Another thing I didn't mention, this shirt, coat, jacket we got laying here, they just referred to it as a shirt. Well, the rifleman quite often would wear just a shirt like this or similar to this. A lot of them were white or salt and pepper like John's, and then some of them they were dyed different colors. We really don't know why. And then the ones that was dyed different colors, they were trimmed yet with a different color of trim on it. Some have speculated that the blue trim indicated a sergeant, the yellow trim indicated a captain, and the untrimmed was privates or whatever there. But it's one of them questions that we really don't know. That's all speculation. We do know that this type of shirt, what John's got on, we nicknamed him the frock, which it's not really a frock because a frock was a pullover device, but the frock was a pullover. At some point we split them down the middle. They called it a shirt, which I don't think a shirt is the proper term either, because a shirt was a pullover device. The shirt didn't split down the front. Now, like I say, there's so many questions in history, terms that we use as, they're right to us, but maybe they are right, maybe they're not. But the deal here is, what all you folks just think, well, man, I'm interested in clothing. I'm going to research that old geezer out, see if he knew what he's talking about. And somebody else is handy with tools. Hey, I'm going to do a little tool research. And somebody else there that's interested in maybe learning to build a rifle, as long as I can create a little bit of interest in one of you, this talk is a success. Just one of you. Hopefully more than that, but that's kind of my way of judging things. So folks, I'm about to lose my voice. If you got any questions, we'll do question and answer. That's all I have to say on it, Randy.
All right. Thank you, Larry.
All righty.
Wonderful presentation there. A lot of good history.
Well, like I say, Randy, a little bit of history. Robert McCoy's farm was about a mile out that way. Of course, there was McCoy Cemetery. But I went to this school back here. First 5.5 years I was in school there. Got a lot of good memories. And didn't use this at the cafeteria building. This one, we used a different little building here. But that was my cafeteria building. And across the street here was a little restaurant, Mo Hedges. And prior to the cafeteria being built, but you go over Mo Hedges, and for a quarter you could get a ham and beans and mashed potatoes. That for a school kid, that wasn't too bad a deal, But that menu didn't change. That was every day. Yeah. The times, folks, is changing. I'm not happy with all of them. We've done some great advancements in our lifetimes in the field of medicine. I remember my grandpa, one time we was out in the evening, dark, looked up, said, "Grandpa, we ever going to get to the moon?" Simple question, simple answer. Answer, "No, boy, it can't be done." That's it. 9 years after Grandpa passed, we were there. That's how fast times has changed and how quick it can happen. This virus deal, we kicked an overdrive developing that virus, and in just a few months, we've got a vaccine for the virus. A lot of things is good that's happened today. A lot of things is not good. You wouldn't believe it, but in my time in Monroe City here, 10 gas stations in town, 4 grocery stores. There was always about 3 restaurants. I mean, and a doctor's office, can't leave that out. But it was a pretty self-sufficient little town. Now we got a quick market at the end of Maine, and I think that's it. Yeah.
Movie theater too.
Yes, that was a good one. Yep. Like I say, Randy, go at it.
Need to bring up, we did this at our Zoom meeting last time, but some of you weren't here. Something we put together with the DAR. If they help us bring members into our chapter, we'll give them a certificate of appreciation for 1 member, and then a medal appreciation if they bring in 3. And if they bring in 5, we'll bring in the Martha Washington medal and certificate. So a little bit of incentive to help our chapter grow. So thought I'd throw that out there. So if you got some friends that would like to join, we'd love to have some more members. So we brought in 3 members in 19. Last year we had 3 members that are now deceased. So it always goes up and down, but we'd like to continue growing. So all right. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to bring up? Everybody good? All right. Our next chapter meeting will be August the 21st at 1:30, and we'll decide on a good location when we get closer to that. See how things go this summer. I'll move this over here. Folks at home can see. All right. Next then, we'll have our SAR recessional. Mr. Fish.
Okay, if you'll read along with me, last time my bifocal betrayed me a little bit on the last couple of words. Let's see if we can do better this time. If you're ready, until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men. Thank you.
And our benediction. Thank you, Lord, for bringing this group of free Americans together so we can have a good meeting, good presentation, installing 2 new members and a supplemental. It's great to have good weather and good people together and visit and help us to get together and meet again. In Jesus' name, amen.